What's up, guys? Cinema Buff, and today we're going to be talking about Batman v Superman. I remember back in 2016, this movie, there was a whole lot of talk about it. People were debating who's going to win. Superman, he's so strong, he has all these powers, Batman can't beat him. No, Batman he has all this technology, he's super smart, and, he has kryptonite. Of course he's going to win. There was that whole big debate, and honestly, I thought Batman was going to win. Had no interest in seeing the movie, but I thought Batman's gonna win. Now, before I review this movie, I just want to say, I am reviewing the Ultimate Edition, not the theatrical version. Now, if you don't know what I mean, there's the version that was released in theaters. Well, when I was watching the movie, I felt like some stuff was left out, and turns out it was. Apparently, there were some deleted scenes. They wanted to make the movie shorter, so that way people wouldn't have to wait, to get up from their seats. So yeah, with the deleted scenes, the movie is 3 hours long, including credits. And, I find those extra scenes a little bit helpful. So I was watching the movie with a friend of mine named Quinn. And when I walked out of the movie, I didn't really like it as much as I thought I would. So in the beginning, we see Bruce Wayne as a child, and, we see his parents getting killed. Because we haven't seen that before in any comic book or any other Batman movie, including the Nolan trilogy and the 1989 Batman. We see Bruce Wayne attending the funeral with Alfred. It's sad. Eventually he falls down this pit, and apparently he floats and flies out of there. But it turns out that part was just a dream. Apparently it's a recurring dream in Bruce Wayne's mind. And we go to present day, or, the day that Superman was introduced to Metropolis. Bruce Wayne, he's driving throughout the city as the World Engine, the Phantom Transport is being destroyed. Superman is fighting Zod, and I like this part because we get to see it from the human's perspective. It's kind of like with Civil War. We see in the movies that they're being the bad guys. Surely, it's not really all bad, right? No, but there are consequences. Buildings get destroyed, people die. Like in Spider-Man Homecoming, which came out after Civil War, we see one of the villains being formed as a result of the Avengers. And that same thing is being applied to this movie. People are dying, there's this whole controversy around Superman. I really like this part of the movie. We see Bruce Wayne, running towards the danger. He tries to get everyone to evacuate the building, including one of his employees named Jack. He says a prayer before he dies as a result of Zod shooting his laser eyes. And Batman, he's helping people. There's this one person named Keith, I think that's his name. He's important later in the movie. And, his legs are broken. He can't use them anymore because a part of the building collapsed on him. And, Batman saves this little girl. The little girl says her mother was on this building before she died. And Batman looks at Superman in the sky and sees him as his true enemy. Then we cut to 18 months later and we see Lois Lane in Africa. She's with a photographer, Jimmy Olsen. Yeah, Jimmy Olsen from the comics. He's a reporter at the Daily Planet, and, he's friends with Superman. As far as I know, I don't really know that much. Apparently, it's revealed that in his camera, there's a tracking chip. The CIA follow him to this terrorist organization. Jimmy Olsen is killed, and the terrorist leader captures Lois, and, eventually some people just start shooting up the terrorists, and that's a part of Lex Luthor's plan. We see Superman come in and save Lois Lane, and we see that some of the people that shot the terrorists down decide to burn the bodies. And then later we see, people in the Indian Ocean. That sound familiar? The Indian Ocean is where the World Engine is. That thing that Superman destroyed in Man of Steel. And apparently some people, managed to scavenge it and found remnants of it, including kryptonite. And later the kryptonite is going to be shipped to Lex Luthor, and later Batman's going to steal it. So apparently Lex Luthor had a bunch of agents kill the terrorists and then burn the bodies so that he can frame Superman for those murders. And, that would stir up this whole controversy. People would question, should there be a Superman? He acts by his own will. And apparently Lex Luthor already knows the identities of Superman and Batman. And he made it so that Lois Lane would go into the desert. That way Superman could actually go there, and that way it seems valid enough that Superman would murder these people. So let's talk a little bit about Lex Luthor. He's played by Jesse Eisenberg, and he plays like a kind of cliche, kind of crazy guy that twitches a lot. He's like, but it's actually entertaining. I really like this version of Lex Luthor. It's not like the comics that much. He does become bald later in the movie. It's a good performance. And what I really like in this movie is Lex Luthor's motivation. He essentially just hates God. He explains how his dad, he abused his son his entire life. People said that God would protect you, but Lex Luthor felt like he did not get protection as people promised. And, ever since Superman was introduced, Lex Luthor sees Superman as the embodiment of God, and now he has someone to take it out on. He says later in the movie,
if God is all powerful, he cannot be all good. And if he is all good, then he cannot be all powerful. And neither can you be.
So I really like Lex Luthor's motivation. Lex Luthor's plan can be a little convoluted at sometimes. It takes multiple viewings to fully understand it. After multiple viewings, I understand it. And it's fun. Then we go to Gotham City, and these policemen see this criminal is branded with the bat symbol. Yes, apparently Batman brands criminals. And, apparently it's news that people who are branded with the bat symbol usually end up dead in prison. People are concerned about this. Basically, this is a death sentence. Batman is basically telling all these criminals to kill these people. And that gets Superman, frustrated because he thinks that Batman shouldn't be above the law, basically taking it into his own hands. And Batman, he's played by Ben Affleck. I remember, people were hating Ben Affleck as Batman, but I love him as Batman. He's great. He's the character of Bruce Wayne. I found really interesting. Jeremy Irons as Alfred. He has really funny moments in this movie. Yeah, so yeah, I liked Ben Affleck as Batman. But there's one aspect of Batman that I'm pretty sure a lot of Batman fans can agree, just didn't work. So Lex Luthor owns LexCorp, as you might have guessed, and he's talking with this senator because he wants access to the remains of the old Kryptonian ship that Superman blew up, and he wants to access to Zod's body as well. He also wants to start a program that would eliminate any metahuman, any Kryptonians, and the senator doesn't agree with it. She's not going to fund Lex Luthor's project, and that obviously gets him mad, and that leads to the senator's death later in the movie. So he needs access to Zod's body because later he's going to use Zod's fingerprints to access the Kryptonian ship, and later he's going to use Zod to create Doomsday, and we will talk about that later in this review. And Superman, Clark Kent, he's at the Daily Planet. He's questioning, why aren't we covering the Bat story? Crime rates are up in Gotham because of him. And, Perry White, he makes a really funny... It's probably my favorite joke in the entire movie. He's like, crime wave in Gotham. Other breaking news. Water wet. Apparently this African woman is upset that her parents died at the hands of Superman. But what the audience doesn't know yet is that Lex Luthor actually paid her to tell the news that. Apparently, her parents are alive and well, and Lex Luthor is just threatening their lives so that she can say this lie about Superman. Apparently, Batman is investigating Lex Luthor. Apparently, he has some hidden files that Batman can't access, so he has to find a way to get into LexCorp secretly. Apparently, Lex Luthor is throwing a party, and along with Batman, Clark Kent is also invited there. Batman downloads all of these files, but they're stolen by this woman named Diana Prince, who's actually Wonder Woman, played by Gal Gadot, or Gal Gadot, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Apparently, there's a crisis in Brazil, and Superman decides to go save this kid from a burning building. And there are these bunch of news reports saying Superman's a good guy. No, he's actually a bad guy. One person says, every action is a political act. And one person says, maybe he's just a guy trying to do the right thing. They ask, should there be a Superman? Batman finds out that apparently Lex Luthor is receiving a shipment of a weapon that could supposedly kill Kryptonians, kryptonite. Alfred suggests that maybe he's out on our side. And, Batman has a valid reason for not liking Superman. He caused the deaths of millions of people, including some of his co-workers. And he also says that
he has the power to wipe out the entire human race. And if we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
That's Batman. He always thinks ahead, thinking of all the different possibilities. So we see Batman going to the dock, stealing the kryptonite, and, we get to see him drive the Batmobile, and it's so awesome. But then you realize something that kind of ruins his character. He's a fucking murderer. This guy is shooting people, straight up murdering people. They completely abandoned his moral code, that he doesn't kill people, he doesn't become the criminals that he's defending Gotham from. And, through my research, he does kill in different comics, but usually there's a drive. Maybe because the Joker pushes him too far. They don't really establish that in this film. Earlier, we saw that Batman is walking past the Robin suit, and we see something spray painted on it. On the Robin suit, it says, ha ha ha, Joke's on you. You know, saying that Joker killed Robin. Is that the reason he decided to kill? Apparently, like, he didn't kill before. Is that the reason? They don't say if that's the reason. They rarely give an explanation as to why this vigilante is murdering people. So yeah, he's shooting people down. Eventually, Superman stops him from getting the kryptonite. For a short while, anyways. And, you know, he tells Batman, next time they shine your light in the sky, don't go to it. And, you know, Batman says a really cool line.
Tell me, do you bleed your will?
Later, Batman meets Diana Prince, and Diana Prince says that she was just borrowing the files. Like, she wants to try to access them too. She says that you'll find it in the cup holder of your car later. And, you know, eventually he tries encrypting them, and he has a nightmare. We see him apparently in a post-apocalyptic world where Superman is a tyrant ruler, his worst fear, that someone with ultimate power beyond his control is ruling the world as a dictator. He sees in the far-off distance that apparently the Omega symbol is carved in the ground. I think that's hinting at Darkseid in the DCEU. They also hinted at him in Justice League. We see Batman killing these people with guns, and, like, you know, people say, Batman doesn't use guns. Like, that, like, I don't really like it, but that's just a nitpick. It doesn't really ruin the movie that much. But, you know, Batman doesn't really use guns. And anyway, so he's fighting people, he gets pinned down, and we see parademons, you know, hinting at Darkseid coming to Earth. And, you know, we see that Superman kills Batman in the dream, and Batman wakes up to find the Flash through this portal. Through my research, apparently the Flash is from the future, and he's trying to warn Batman about this upcoming event. I heard there were two possibilities. Either Darkseid, you know, coming to Earth, that, like, Lois is the key to all this, and that you were right about Superman, or something like that. So yeah, it could be hinting at Darkseid, or it could be hinting at, the possible future where Superman is a tyrant ruler, or the Injustice League. So Lex Luthor decides to go with his program anyway to stop Kryptonians and metahumans. And the senator, you know, she decides to call for a hearing. Like, she wants Superman to come to the Capitol in Washington, D.C. in order to discuss what happened in that desert. Apparently, the guy, Keith, I think? Yeah, so Lex Luthor apparently wants him to have this new wheelchair. And, you know, he wants him to go to the hearing as well, you know, to say his views on Superman. But what he doesn't know is that the wheelchair actually has a bomb inside, but Superman can't see through it because it's laced with lead. So, earlier in the movie, the senator went to Lex Luthor's house to say that she's not going to fund this project. And, you know, he says, like, can I call you, like, this? And she's like, you can call me whatever you like. You can take a bucket of piss and call it Granny's peach tea, because you're not going to fool me. She's saying that no matter what you do, you're not going to fool me, or anything like that. And apparently, like, at the hearing, like, Superman comes to the hearing, and she discusses with Superman about, like, what happened in that desert, but she notices something on her desk, a jar full of what appears to be Granny's peach tea. And, you know, she notices that Lex Luthor is not in the room with them. And, as I said earlier, there's a bomb in the wheelchair, and it explodes. People suspect Superman of the bombing, and, you know, Batman also suspects Superman of the bombing, considering everything else he's learned about Superman. That leads Batman to steal the kryptonite and, you know, eventually create a spear. He creates these gas bombs of kryptonite, and later that leads to the fight on top of this building later in the movie. Later, Lex Luthor decides to capture Martha Kent, Superman's mother. He also captures Lois Lane. Lex Luthor decides to push her off the roof of the building, which will attract Superman's attention, and, you know, it does. And Superman hears out Lex Luthor's plan. Lex Luthor reveals that he's kidnapped Superman's mom, and, you know, Superman's willing to do anything to get his mom back. And so, Lex Luthor says, if you bring me the head of the bat, you shall get your mother back. But what Lex Luthor actually wants is for Superman to die. He knows that Batman stole the kryptonite. He knows that Batman is waiting for Superman. So basically, he's leading Superman to his death. And I will admit, I really like the fight between Batman and Superman. Batman, you know, first he says, well, here I am. And, you know, it's cool seeing, like, Batman struggle, but then he uses the kryptonite. He's able to fight Superman, using the environment around him, using his grappling hook. It's really fun. But the thing is, this fight lasts like 8 to 10 minutes. This movie, the Ultimate Edition, is 3 hours long, including credits. An 8 to 10 minute fight in a movie that is over 2 hours long. The title of the movie is Batman v Superman. And we get 8 minutes of the actual fight. How disappointing. Eventually, Superman is pinned down on the ground. Batman says, "You were never a god. You were never even a man." And, Superman decides, to beg Batman for help. "You're letting him kill Martha." That obviously that triggers some memories about Batman's mother dying, because his mother's name is also Martha. People have said, "Oh, this is so stupid. Batman now forgives him because their mothers have the same name." No, that is not the case. He realizes that Superman has a human mother. Lois Lane comes in. She says that's his mother's name. Batman never thought that Superman can have a human mother. Basically, that changes his view on him, making him realize that he's not fully evil. And that how Batman was not able to save his Martha, maybe he can save Superman's Martha. So overall, I really like that moment. Anyway, so Batman decides to help Superman. Apparently Lex Luthor went to the old Kryptonian ship, and, he uses Zod's body to create Doomsday. And Doomsday seems completely out of nowhere. Lex Luthor says that he was the backup plan in case Batman didn't kill Superman. And I'm just thinking, do we need this right now? My main problem with this movie is that it feels like, it's kind of like with Iron Man 2. There's multiple story threads in this movie that feels like they can be separate movies on their own. In Batman v Superman, this feels like it can be 2 separate movies on its own. Think about it. The first movie, Batman thinks Superman's evil, Superman investigating with the Bat, Lex Luthor manipulating everyone behind the scenes, and eventually that leads to the fight, but then it leads to Batman realizing that Superman is good. That could be a movie on its own. And the second movie could be about, the emergence of Wonder Woman along with Batman and Superman, and Doomsday being the main villain throughout the entire movie. And this sets up the Justice League. Those things feel like they can be 2 separate movies, yet it's crammed into one, and so the ending of this movie feels like a complete mess. So yeah, Lex Luthor creates Doomsday, Superman tries fighting Doomsday, but apparently Doomsday is pretty much a Saiyan. What I mean by that is, the more damage he takes, the stronger he gets. Eventually, the army tries nuking Doomsday. I'm not kidding. So Superman takes him up into space, and the U.S. Army decides to launch a nuke at Doomsday, and Doomsday survives, and basically, he evolves. Meanwhile, Batman is trying to get Martha Kent. At least this really cool action scene. And what I love about it so much is that it reminds me of the Batman Arkham games. Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight. He does all these cool moves. And yeah, it's clear that he does kill some people, but I will admit, it's really fun to watch. He saves Martha Kent, and he says, I'm a friend of your son's. And she says, I figured. The cape. Batman tries leading Doomsday away from a populated area, and he successfully does that, and Batman seems to be down. He's going to be killed. But then Wonder Woman comes in, and we hear her theme, and her theme is one of my favorite superhero themes of all time. We see her holding her own against Doomsday. She says it seems to feed on energy. And Superman explains that it's from another world, my world. And she explains, I've killed things from other worlds before. And we get a comedic moment. Superman's talking to Batman. He's like, is she with you? He replies, I thought she was with you. They realize that they need the Kryptonian spear in order to kill it. But with the help of Wonder Woman and Batman, Superman jabs the Kryptonian spear, but at the cost of his own life. And we already know he's going to come back. It was kind of obvious. So, apparently there's 2 separate funerals, one for Clark Kent and one for Superman. The army honors Superman's death as if he was a soldier, and, the Kent family members, Batman, Wonder Woman, they honor him as a friend. So apparently Lois Lane gets a package with a wedding ring. Superman was going to propose to her, and apparently Batman paid for the funeral. So earlier in the movie, Batman sent an email to Diana, and, all the files that Lex Luthor had of all these metahumans, including her. And apparently, she's an Amazon warrior, as we find out in Wonder Woman. And apparently, like, he has files not just on Wonder Woman, but on the Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman. In her file, she has like a photo from World War I or II. I had to watch Wonder Woman again. I don't remember. The security footage of the Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg, being revived, being brought back from the dead due to the Mother Box. The Mother Box becomes relevant in Justice League. This whole scene is just there to set up the Justice League. And this is a nitpick. Like, it doesn't really affect my viewing experience, but it's kind of silly. So think about it. These are files from LexCorp. Lex Luthor, he's paranoid about metahumans taking over. Yet, the files, like, people at LexCorp literally took the time to design logos for the heroes. Really, like, he designed their symbols as if they were going to become heroes eventually. Like, really? So yeah, Wonder Woman explains how, like, we need to find them. Well, Batman explains that, sorry. And, how they need to find the others. There could be, like, potential dangers to our world coming. So, Lex Luthor actually got apprehended by the cops. But before that, he had a vision of Steppenwolf and how he's going to come to Earth to retrieve the Mother Boxes. He's sent to prison. He's, he faces justice for his crimes. They shave his head, giving that iconic bald look from the comics. And Batman comes in to visit Lex, and he explains how he's being sent to Arkham. And Lex Luthor says that he knows the identity of Batman, but no one will believe him because he's legally insane. Batman decides not to brand him, and Lex Luthor says, "You cannot stop it. Like, Steppenwolf is hungry. He's coming." And the film ends showing Superman's grave, coffin, and, there's a pile of dirt on it, and we see little particles rise up. It's like, yeah, it was kind of obvious. Superman's gonna live. We all know this. So that's Batman v Superman. Not perfect. It's not necessarily a horrible film, but it's not necessarily a great film either. The character of Batman is great until you realize that he's a fucking murderer. Ben Affleck, he does great at Batman. I like the character of Bruce Wayne. Clark Kent does great as Superman. There are some funny moments here and there. I really like Lex Luthor and his motivation. And, Lex Luthor's plan, it can be convoluted at some moments, but, after multiple viewings, you can follow it. And, Doomsday, kind of out of nowhere, it seemed like it was just put there to have a big CGI fight in the end. And, like, a lot of it is setting up the Justice League. My main problem is that this can be two separate movies on its own. So yeah, this movie is kind of a mess. I would give it a 6 out of 10. That's the end of this review, folks. What did you guys think? Did you like it? Did you not? Let me know in the comments below. Keep an eye out for my review for Suicide Squad. Cinema Buff, signing out.